My name is Vince Fabra, professional public speaker, semi-professional stand-up comedian, an amateur husband and father of two. In this video, we will be going over Vince Fabra's presentation tips to give you some helpful tools to use during a presentation. Here is my thesis statement. It is impossible to teach, reach, or preach to an audience that is not paying attention. And every audience member is either subconsciously or quite actively trying to tune you out. In order to break through and connect, you've got to mix it up. In this video, I'll focus on everything that you can control as a presenter: your voice, your body, and your content. I'll also be throwing in some quick pro tips. These are tools in my toolkit that I utilize to break through and connect with audiences. Speaking of, let's get to one of those quick pro tips. Tell them, tell them, tell them. That means at the start of your presentation, tell them what you're going to tell them. Then, throughout your presentation, tell them. And at the end of your presentation, tell them what you told them. So, as you noticed, I opened up my presentation by just laying out my thesis statement and how I was going to cover that content. When you use the tell them, tell them, tell them technique, it really primes the audience's brain to get into a space to learn. It's a lot like seeing a movie trailer before you go in to see the movie. It just kind of gives you a couple of highlights in a short, condensed version. And then when you're watching the full thing, you're like, oh, I remember that from the trailer. Yeah, that guy is the villain. Now, some movies are best viewed when you don't know anything about them. And some presentations are like that as well. But I think for the most part, just starting out, the tell them method is a great way to have curriculum and content stick. That was a quick pro tip. Now let's get back to my main list: voice, body, content. Let's start with your voice. Remember the last line from my thesis statement? Let's take a look. You've got to mix it up. We're all familiar with the concept of monotone. When I think of monotone, I think of something that is slow and flat and boring. Sorry, excuse me. Real quick, shout out to Mr. LeBon, my 11th grade physics teacher. Best nap of every day that year. But monotone doesn't just mean slow and flat and boring. If a tone is unchanging, that means monotone. So even fast and energetic and dynamic can become monotone. Shout out to my youth pastor, Corey. Dude was jacked for Jesus. If you had to pick a tone, Mr. LeBon, slow, flat, and boring, or Corey, energetic and dynamic and fast, I mean, obviously I would go with Corey. I think, just at face value, that is going to be the more effective tone. But I really think that variety is the key. You have to be intentional about the way that you mix up your tone, mix up your pace, and mix up your cadence. Otherwise, the audience is going to tune out. I see this all the time from the stage. When I'm in a room where they give me a microphone, but I don't quite need a microphone, I'll just set it to the side and speak and project with my voice. Then I start to feel the audience just tune out a little bit. So I'll start a sentence just talking and projecting, and then I'll finish the sentence on the microphone. And that change, all of the heads that have tuned me out, they pop right back up. They're like, oh, something different has happened. And I just really think that variety and mixing it up, again, going back to the thesis statement, is how you're going to re-engage your audience. Also, let's talk about the use of pauses and negative space. In my semi-profession, as a stand-up comedian, it's so difficult to write a great joke. It's even harder to deliver a great joke effectively. Sometimes pausing right before the punchline brings the audience in, and that way you can deliver that content for maximum impact. In that case, laughter. If you're going to effectively mix up your tone to engage your audiences, pause. Yeah. You've got to know your content forwards and backwards. When I was just starting out as a professional speaker, I realized that I was too focused on what I was going to say next, that I wasn't being able to put a lot of intention on mixing up my tone and cadence and pitch and all of those things. So really dive deep and become familiar with your content so that you can provide some variety in your voice to keep people's attention. I think it's time for another quick pro tip. And power clap. 1, 2, 3. As a professional speaker, the power clap is probably my most useful and most used tool in my toolkit. It provides a quick burst of energy that resets the room and, for a brief moment, unites every single audience member as we clap in unison. Power clap. 1, 2, 3. Enjoy this power clap smash cut.
Let me just get a power clap. I count to 3. We all clap one very powerful time together. Sounds like this. Power clap. 1, 2, 3. Power clap. 1, 2, 3. The fresh power clap. 1, 2, 3. Two-person power clap. 1, 2, 3. Excellent. All right.
Full transparency. I did not invent the power clap. Okay? No one knows who did. But I do encourage you to do like I did. Steal it. Use it. Thank me later. But if it's not specifically the power clap, just have something that you use to just wake the audience up and break up the monotony of you talking. Okay, back to the main list. Let's talk about our bodies. Don't make it weird. That sounded weird. Don't make it weird. Body. Let's reference my thesis again.
You've got to mix it up.
If an unchanging voice is called monotone, then an unchanging body during a presentation should be #monobod. In the same way that Corey's tone of energetic and dynamic is probably better than Mr. LeBon's tone of flat and boring, don't just stand behind a podium frozen with fear, just gripping that thing white-knuckled. Also, remember that constant talking with your hands and pacing back and forth is also #monobod. Maybe it'll bring the audience in initially, but an unchanging bod, #monobod, will lose them over time. As I said earlier, in order to do this effectively, you've got to know your content backwards and forwards, because if you're too busy thinking about what you're going to say, you won't be focused on how you're going to say it, and you'll probably end up just falling into a natural habit. It might be a pace, it might be a rock back and forth, it might be white knuckle behind the podium. I am not suggesting that you should have full choreography for your presentation. However, I think that you should move with purpose and recognize that your body is just as important as your voice and your content. Hey, we talked about our bodies and it wasn't awkward. Maybe it's time for another quick pro tip. So there's a very specific moment in every presentation where the presenter or the professor asks the audience a question. Not a rhetorical question. They're looking for an answer, okay? And they're greeted with an awkward silence. No one's ready to raise their hand and give an answer. There's just an awkward silence. We're all kind of looking around. Who's going to be the first one to answer? Who's going to raise their hand? Then the presenter or the professor makes that bad joke. Not everyone all at once. Ha ha ha. And then we all kind of laugh a little bit, even though it wasn't funny. And then the person that raises their hand is the person that always raises their hand. And then we just kind of go, oh, this dude again, Yeah, we should avoid all of that. If you're the presenter and you want to engage the audience by asking a question and getting a response, use the 30-second conversation break. Anytime I'm looking for a response from the audience, what I'll say is, hey, here's what I would love for you to do. I would love for you to take 30 seconds, talk to your neighbor, answer this question. I'll come back and check on you. Power clap. 1, 2, 3. Boom! Here's what's so great about that. The sound of people talking is so much sexier than the sound of people thinking. Just like the power clap, 50 to 100 to maybe even 1,000, depending on how big your audience. Voices chatting all at once will raise the energy in the room, breaks up the monotony of just your voice, and people are going to get a little bit more engaged through that. Here's another reason why the 30-second conversation break is effective. Some people are internal processors, and some people are external processors. Some people need to think about it, and some people need to talk it out loud and see how it sounds. The 30-second conversation break is effective for both of those people because somebody will probably just launch into talking about it if they're an external processor. And if they're an internal processor, they can listen for 30 seconds and formulate their own opinion as they think about it. And then after the 30 seconds, power clap, 1, 2, 3. All right, tell me what you discussed. Now you've got 10 hands up instead of 20 awkward seconds of silence. Lastly, my favorite thing about the 30-second conversation break, it gives you a 30-second break. Go check your notes. Go take a sip of water. If you need to, make it a 90-second conversation break and run to the bathroom. I've done it before. Just be sure to wash your hands. Back to the list. Content. So as a speaker, you can control your voice, you can control your body, and you can control the way that you package and deliver your content. Let's take a look at my thesis statement one more time.
You've got to mix it up.
Remember, every single audience member is either subconsciously or quite actively trying to tune you out. You are in a battle with each and every one of their attention spans. So, you need a span of your own. That's right. Get ready. It's cheesy acronym time, baby. Yeah! SPAN stands for stories, perspective, activities, and notes. A healthy balance between these four things is the best way to keep your audience engaged throughout the entirety of your presentation. The S in SPAN stands for stories. Stories are an effective way to deliver your content. And for a lot of people in your audience, it's probably the thing that they will connect to the most. I studied this stuff in college. At the University of Southern Miss, to the top, I was a communication studies major. But one of the things that stuck with me, and I still remember to this day, are the elements of persuasion: ethos, logos, and pathos, which basically means credibility, logic, and emotion. Stories is pathos, emotion. Human beings, we love stories. We love having our emotions moved. And if you can effectively use stories during your presentation, then you can get your audience to care about your cause or join your fraternity or whatever the intention of your presentation is. Here are 3 tips that I'm going to give you on how to tell an effective story. Number 1, recalling an event versus telling a story. The most common misstep that I see when people tell a story is they don't actually tell a story. They just simply recall an event, which is a factual retelling of what happened. The who, what, when, where, why. They jam a happy ending or, some message at the end, but they really didn't move you because they didn't tell a story. A story recreates an experience. It puts the audience member in the story. It is rich with detail that appeal to the 5 senses. There's a difference between just giving us the who, what, when, where, and why and making us feel the environment, being put in that moment. So when you tell a story, make sure that you're not just recalling the event. Make sure it's rich with detail that appeal to the 5 senses. Your second piece of story advice: a hero's journey. Who is the story about and what did they learn along the way? You can make the story about yourself. However, it can't be about like the cool thing that you did or the time that you saved someone's life. It has to be about a time when you were humbled and you learned something and you grew as a person. And then number 3, your story has to make a point. Why are you telling the story and how does it serve your overall message? I would love to quickly walk you through one of the stories that I tell during my presentation. Okay, so here I am at Alpha Tau Omega Congress in 2018, apparently smelling my finger. Just wanted to make sure that it didn't stink. Before we continue, there are hundreds of other speakers that I would rather you watch deliver a great story. It was just simple and easy to grab this clip that I knew already touched upon a lot of the things that I wanted you to look out for in stories and just presentation in general. So as you watch this story, which is about 5.5 minutes, I want you to listen to my tone, my pace, my cadence, how I mix it up. I want you to watch my body, how most of the time I'm standing still, but if I am moving, I'm moving with a purpose. And I want you to remember the story advice that I gave you. I'm not simply just recalling an event. It's a 5.5 minute story. The hero's journey, I am at the center of the story. It's a story about me. I did something cool. But when you watch the story, you'll see I was humbled and I learned something. And lastly, I make a point. It's quite clear at the end there what this whole story was leading to. So enjoy.
There was a moment pretty recently where I kind of realized the difference between social highs and happiness. All right? I'm from New Orleans, and I'm not much of a hockey fan. I'm a sports fan. Who dat till I die? Go Braves, Southern Miss to the top, right? Like that's my teams right there. And wherever LeBron plays, I'm a sucker. All right, I'm a Lakers fan now. He's my favorite, okay? We'll get off of it because we could spend an hour talking about that. Anyway, I like hockey now. Is anybody from hockey country? Like just the Northeast or any Caps fans in the crowd? Like we finally won? All right, good deal. It's interesting you didn't raise your hand for hockey fans though. Like you were just like, we're Caps fans, just not hockey fans. When we hoist the cup, we root. Don't be a front runner, bro. Don't be a front runner. I'm just kidding. I love you. Anyway, there's a minor league hockey team in South Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina, where I live. And my wife and I, we were looking for something to do before we were pregnant, maybe 2 years ago at this point. It was $2 hot dog night, $2 beer night on a Tuesday. We're like, let's go watch some hockey. Like, let's do this. And then we got there, and we loved it. If you've never seen hockey live, it's the best sport to watch live. It's fantastic. It's amazing. You'll figure out the rules. There really aren't that many. Puck goes in net, good. That's it. That's all you really need to know, right? So we get hooked. That same season, we go probably about 15 more times because they made a real deep run through the playoffs, and we were there cheering them on maybe once every other week. Like, we were into it, you know? And then we had our baby, and we take her to her first hockey game. Now, instead of sitting by the glass yelling at the players, we're up in the upper deck, you know, just kind of casually enjoying ourselves. During intermission, which if you're not a hockey fan, basically like halftime, but it's not really halftime because there's periods. You get it. Anyway, during intermission, the Zamboni's on the ice, smoothing out the ice. Now, any Zamboni worth a damn is going to have a T-shirt cannon on it, fellas. You know it's got to. Otherwise, it's a missed opportunity right there. So the T-shirt cannon is on the Zamboni. It is firing. It is on the other side of the arena. And I'm doing some math. I'm just like, it looks like the trajectory and the angle. Like, I feel like this is going to come right in my vicinity. I got this. So my wife is holding our baby, and she's going to go get something out of the diaper bag, maybe a snack or a toy or a bib or something for a baby, and not for me. Let's get him a bib and get him his applesauce. So she's like, hey, I need you to hold this baby, our baby. I need you to hold our baby. We didn't steal a baby. I need you to hold our baby. And I said to her, I said to her as confidently as I can say I am here right now in Orlando, Florida. I said, if you hand me our baby, Hattie, I'm going to catch a T-shirt from the cannon while holding the baby. I called it. I said that. Right? She was like, yeah, whatever. Cool. So it's going. It hits section, I'm in like 211. It hits section 208. He reloads. I'm like, oh, shit, I'm going to catch this T-shirt. Like, this is happening. Baby's right here. It's in the air. And have you ever seen Sandlot when Benny the Jet tells Smalls to just stand in the outfield with his glove in the air? I'll take care of the rest, bro. Like, that's exactly what it was like. I was just like, and I caught it, and I looked at my baby, and I looked at this T-shirt, and I looked at my wife. I was like, I called that. Everyone in the section was like, that guy just caught a T-shirt with a baby. Like, they went crazy. They cheered for me, which is a little bit of a social high, you know? And so I snapped this picture, which is me with a terrible T-shirt. It's a 3X that feels like a potato sack. You know it's never a good T-shirt. It has a thread count of 2, you know, like. So the T-shirt wasn't the accomplishment, but the accomplishment was it was the first time I really felt like a dad. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was the first time that I was like, this is some dad shit right here. My baby was like 6-7 months at the time. I'd changed diapers, and I'd gotten up in the crying late nights, you know what I'm saying? But like, this was the first time I was like, yes, this is my life now, and I couldn't be happier, right? So we snapped this picture, and of course I sent it to the dudes in fantasy football because I'm going to pull on some heartstrings to get some hearts. I'm not completely immune to the social highs, guys. I think I got like 8, 9. Yeah, I know Brett, Kevin, and Brennan didn't like it. Screw those guys. I hate those guys. But I was about to like throw it on a social media app. I was about to share it with the internet, you know. And here's the thing: happiness exists in the moment, and social highs are what you allow people to tell you about the moment. The second I put it on Instagram, this moment is quantified. The cuteness or how special it is quantified by the likes and the hearts and the comments. And then what do I do the entire second period? I check. I'm like, oh man, we're getting some action on this post. This is a great post. And the thing that I'm not doing is enjoying the moment. The thing I'm not doing is enjoying Hattie's first hockey game. And if you're chasing the likes, metaphorically or literally on the social media apps, it's never enough. It's never enough.
All right, back to me in my other shirt. The P in SPAN stands for perspective. If you were asked to give a presentation on a topic, hopefully you are some sort of expert or authority on the topic. Going back to the elements of persuasion, that would be the credibility. If this is the case, it is absolutely fine for you to share your own perspective on the topic. Again, there's a way to do this effectively, and I believe it's first asking yourself, what do I believe? What are your thoughts on this topic? What are your beliefs that you hold deep down? Number two, how did I arrive at these beliefs? What are the experiences that you've had in your life that have led you to this conclusion that you're willing to share with the audience? And lastly, why is this relevant to the audience's experience? Much like your stories, the perspective that you share also has to make a point that serves your overall content. The A in SPAN stands for activities. No matter how good a job you do throwing some variety in on your tone and using movement effectively, the audience is eventually going to tune out because it's just you up there talking. It's hard to keep people's attention. That's why a well-placed activity will break up the monotony of speaker and audience and maybe put them into a small group or some type of solo learning environment. If you're going to use activities in your presentation, make sure that they are these three things. Number one, quick. 30 seconds on the short end, 5 minutes max. Now, we've all done activities that do take a long time, where you got a bunch of Legos and you got to build a Taj Mahal, and one guy can't talk and another guy's blindfolded. The third guy's got his arms tied behind his back, and this guy can only speak Spanish. Like, we've all done these activities before. That's a whole different thing. That's facilitation. That's not presentation. That's facilitation. So we can talk a little bit maybe in a future video about how to be a great facilitator during these longer activities. But if you're going to use an activity in your presentation, 30 seconds to 5 minutes, they got to be quick. Number two, they got to be easy. No setup or very minimal setup done before you hit the stage. Nothing makes an audience tune out more than passing out note cards for 2 minutes. It will kill any momentum that you've built during your presentation. And lastly, make sure that it is effective. Make sure that it drives home a point or strongly supports your message. Don't just take a couple-minute break to do something that's fun and silly that doesn't serve your overall message. Oh, that list of activities reminded me of my final quick pro tip. It's called the Sexy Think Jam. Sounds a little weird, but it's not. Maybe it is. Who am I to judge what you think is weird? If you're going to provide an activity that is a solo activity, meaning you're not asking people to talk to each other, you're asking them to write down on a note card, or you're asking them to text on their phone, there's going to be a silence that falls in the room, and you don't need that. What you need is your phone hooked up to the Bluetooth or to the auxiliary cord in the room, or even your cell phone and a cup, or the speaker that you bring from home. Whatever it is, you need a Sexy Think Jam. Personally, I like to play music that can be enjoyed and ignored. Meaning, I don't want something that's in the background where you don't even notice that it's there, but I also don't want something that is distracting from the activity. Sexy Think Jam. Lastly, when wrapping up the activity and the Sexy Think Jam, I think it's always a good practice to raise the volume and then fade the song out. It's just the best way to go. That is a pro tip right there. All right, let's close out this cheesy acronym. The N in SPAN stands for notes. One of my favorite phrases to say as a speaker is, hey, write this down. Because one of two things happen. Either someone says, okay, or they say, oh, damn, I don't have a pen. Well, you should, okay? I'm going to do a second video series on how to be a good audience member, but I digress. You want to have useful takeaways throughout your presentation. Things that are packaged in small lists of 3 to 5 items so that your audience can easily record them. Like a list of quick pro tips. 3 ways to tell an effective story during your presentation. When you're thinking about your perspective, ask yourself what, how, and why. Your activities need to be quick, easy, and effective. You know, lists like those. I've been doing it the whole time. These useful takeaways are things that you, the presenter, think the audience needs to be successful once they leave your presentation. In closing, I love what I do. I love being on stage. I love taking words and put them together in an order that's going to make people feel something, learn something, or laugh. It's what I do. It's what I love. And I understand if that is not what you do and that is not what you love. I hope that this video has been helpful and maybe reduced a little bit of anxiety that you might feel when you're thrust into that presentation spotlight. So just to recap, know your content backwards and forwards so that you can intentionally put some variety behind your tone and behind your movement. Mix it up. Don't be monotone. Don't have a monobod. When it comes to your content, also mix it up with how you package and deliver it. Remember the acronym SPAN. Stories, perspective, activities, and notes. Have a nice balance of each and every one of those. Also, don't forget about those quick pro tips. Tell them, which I'm doing right now. I'm telling you what I've told you. The power clap or some kind of energy burst. The 30-second conversation break as opposed to asking the question, waiting for a response. And don't sleep on those sexy think jams, baby. That's it. Let me know if you need me. Here's my information. There it is. See you guys.